Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Sunday Bhagavatam class. It's October 24th. Today we're going to begin with, still in the first canto, chapter 13, text 56. And the first verse we read today will give some technical details about Dhritarashtra's yoga process, because he's actually practicing technical yoga process in the forest, announced. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, the first verse today is Dwasta Maya Gunadarko Niruddha Karanashaya. Let's see here. 1 second. Niruddha Karanashaya Nivartita Kilahara. That's interesting. Aste Stanurivachalam. This is a very serious yoga practice, as you'll see. Tasyantarayo maiva bhut sanyastakila garmana. So this is Narada Muni describing Dhritarashtra's yoga practice as he has now renounced the world. So the first thing is dwasta maya guno darko. So the last word in this compound, udarka, is an interesting word because the word arka often means the sun. And so what is that? The Bhagavat sun, what's that verse where the Bhagavatam is risen like the sun? Puranarko. That's the word, Purana Arka. That in this age, when the question was asked by the sages, where can we find Krishna consciousness? Where can we find real spirituality in this age? Now that Krishna has left the planet, and the sages said that Puranarko Duno Dita, that the sun Purana, or the Purana sun, which gives light, which has now risen in the form of the Bhagavatam. So the word used there in that verse, Puranarka, for sun, is Arka. And Udita has risen. Udita, which in Bengali becomes Udila, and that's where you get Udila Arana, that song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Anyway, so Ud means up. And Udarka literally means the up sun. I mean, if you translate it, forget how it sounds in English, just what does it say in Sanskrit? Udarka, the up sun. And what it means is the rising of something. And so if you look at the dictionary, Sanskrit dictionary for Udarka, it means arising. It means, and therefore it can mean, as it does here in this verse, the future result of actions, the consequence, and so on. So, as we know, and the idea here is that whatever we do in the material world, it reacts on us, and that's called karma. So, udarka can also mean the conclusion of something, like, okay, it's risen, it's manifest. So it's kind of concluded, it's ended. So all these, so here it said that guna udarka, maya guna, the illusory qualities. So maya guna here means the illusory qualities. So the rising, the coming up of illusory material qualities, dwasta, has now been destroyed. So that's the idea. So if you think about it, all of our problems, all of them, are mental problems, especially emotional problems, or just being unhappy. It's all the modes of nature. The soul doesn't get depressed. The soul doesn't get stressed out. That's the mind under the of nature. And so here it said about Dhritarashtra that all of the consequences of the illusory qualities that he's been associating with, all these consequences, this whole situation has now been destroyed. So he has actually transcended the modes of material nature. And Krishna uses that term, transcended. The word transcended in the Bhagavad Gita is atita, literally gone beyond, transcended. And so Krishna talks about someone being gunatita. They've gone beyond the modes of nature. And that's basically what's being said here about Dhritarashtra, that all of the consequences or all the influence of these illusory material modes, this has all been destroyed now. And Niruddha, he has restrained, actually someone who cannot be restrained, someone that cannot be controlled by others is called Aniruddha. So that's what the word Aniruddha means. I remember when I was in 1969 and 70, we used to say Aniruddha, but the word is Aniruddha. So here it's just said Niruddha, Karanashaya. So Karana here means the senses, and Ashaya means the mind. So Dhritarashtra has restrained, he has blocked the nonsense, the mischief of his material senses and mind. And Nivartita Kilahara. Ahara can mean eating, but it's very much like the English word consume, in the sense that to consume can mean eating, but it can also mean just anything that you take in with your senses, like consumptionism consumerism. If you think the consumer is the person who's consuming, so it means basically, any attempt to enjoy the material world by buying things, by using things, by touching, seeing, hearing things, anything you're trying to bring in through your senses is consumerism. And that's in Sanskrit, the word ahara. Akila means all of it, without exception. Kila means something's missing. So akila means that without exception, just all forms of consumption, really, or all forms of consuming. Nivartita, he's literally sort of backed away from, he's let go of it. And aste, he remains stanuriva, like a stanu. Stanu here, see how Prabhupada translates that, immovable. It's a very good translation. From the Sanskrit word sta, to stand, and that's where we get the English word stand, of course. So stanu, in the dictionary, Sanskrit dictionary, means standing firmly, stationary. The word stationary is actually cognate with stanu. They come from the same root. Stationary, firm, fixed, immovable, as Prabhupada says, motionless. So, Eva Achalaha. So he's unmoving, and Prabhupada translates that Achala as he's fixed. Achala, also Chala means to move. Chala means moving, and so Achala means unmoving, fixed, motionless. So in that sense, Achala, moving. I mean, you could say, well, I'm not moving from my position, but here's Stanariva Achala. He's literally just motionless. It can also mean the trunk of a tree, which doesn't move. And so he's literally just standing there like the trunk of a tree, unmoving, motionless. Very serious yoga here. And so then Narada, this is a very powerful statement. Narada tells him, Tasya antarayo maiva bhut. Do not in any way, maiva, do not in any way of who? Do not in any way become an obstacle for him. Because if you want to go visit him, oh, my poor uncle, how are you? That's just going to ruin his spiritual practice. It's going to drag him back into this bodily consciousness and all the crazy things he did. And it's just going to, so don't be an obstacle. He's trying to make spiritual advancement. He's trying to really be fixed in spiritual consciousness. So don't go there with your sentimentalism and just ruin his spiritual practice. That's basically what Narada Muni is telling him. Sannyasta kila karmanaha. Because sannyasta, he has given up. Sannyasa is the order of life, and then sannyasta means that one has renounced. So he has renounced akila karmanaha. He has renounced, again, we have the word akila, that he's given up all intake into his senses. And here he has given up all, same word, akila, without exception. He has given up all activities in the sense of material activities. So, I know you're all curious. Yeah, so akila, complete, whole, without exception, so without a gap. So that's Narada Muni's advice. And this is very good advice for all of us. And there's a time to go to people, and there's a time to stay away from them. And this is actually what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita in 1831, where Krishna says that someone who prabhrityacha nivrityacha, that when should you proceed, and when should you recede, go back, when should you hold back? So here, Narada is telling Yudhishthira, do not bother this person. Do not drag him back into the bodily concept of life, that, oh, you're my uncle, I'm your nephew. Don't do that. So he's saying, don't become an obstacle for this person. Because he's given up all this worldly activity. Don't drag him back into it. So good advice, isn't it? We should never be the cause of dragging someone back into mundane consciousness when they're trying to transcend it. That's the idea. So then Narada says, Sava Adyatana Rajan Paratarak Panchamehani. So on the 5th day from now, from today, going forward, parata means sort of going forward. So going forward on the 5th day, Panchameya, mean the 5th day from today, Adyatana means from today. And the 5th day from today, O king, he indeed, Kalevarang Hasyati Swang, he will give up his body. Literally, he will give up his body. Going forward on the 5th day from today, he will give up his body. Tacha basmi bhavishati, and that will become ashes. That will become ashes. Such simple Sanskrit statement, and you can all understand what that's about. Then Narada says, Dayamane bhir dehe. So when his body is burning literally by the fires, and we would say burning in the fires, but the fire, so Agni beers in the plural, so they're apparently, different fires starting. So when his body is burning by the fires, literally, Patyu Patni Sahotaje, and his body is burning with his little thatched cottage. So he has a little cottage. So again, there was a whole method of vanaprastha. They didn't just go out into the wilderness where there's nobody. They went to a place where there was an ashram. There were very experienced professional, not in the sense of just trying to get money, but professional. They were highly skilled vanaprastha experts. that knew exactly how to do it. It's just like, it's almost like, you go to assisted living and they know how to do everything. So they would go to a place, that's where Dhritarashtra was with Vidura and his wife Gandhari. And so he has a cottage, just a little, just made out of straw or made out of grass. So he has a little cottage where he stays. And as he is burning up in these fires, the cottage also catches fire. So it's kind of the way to go back then, because you are doing in other words, what that shows is they didn't recycle the cottages. It's not like, okay, you can use this cottage, and then when you leave the world, we'll sort of fix it up, spruce it up, and then we'll give the cottage to the next person that comes. No, his body is burning in these fires, and the cottage is burning with it. So at that point, Patyu Patni, which literally means the wife of the husband, Patyu Patni, Bahik Stita, and she's standing outside. She's outside the cottage looking at this. So Bahik means outside. She's standing, Bahik Stita, she's outside. And then Patin, her husband, Sadhvi, this is Gandhari, Sadhvi, the saintly person, Tamagnim Anu Vaikshati. So Anu means following. So you have to put the two words together, Anu Patim. Following her husband, this saintly lady, standing outside the cottage, Tamagnim Anu Vaikshati, will enter the fire. Vaikshati is the plural from the verb vish, to enter, so she will enter. And Vishnu, it's often said that Vishnu comes from this root vish, and so Vishnu is the one who has entered everywhere, who's all pervading. So anyway, standing outside, the saintly woman, following her husband, will enter the fire, and this is all going to happen in 5 days. So then Viduras tu Tadascharya Nishamya Kurunandana. So Narada says to Yudhishthira, Kurunandana, oh delight of the Kurus, Vidura, indeed, Viduras tu Tadascharya, that wonder, that amazing thing, Nishamya, seeing it. So Vidura is watching this, and this is, this is his older brother that he's kind of had to put up with, but he loves for his whole life, and then her, his sister-in-law, Gandhari, who he knows very, very, very well, it's his sister. And so he's just watching them leave this world right before his eyes. So if you think about it, for any of us, that would be a pretty amazing thing to see. So Viduras tu Tadascharya Nishamya Kurunandana, Harsha Shoka Yutas. So he felt both joy and sorrow. Because, the harsha, the joy, Prabhupada translates delight, he felt this harsha because after, in some ways, a miserable life. Dhritarashtra, he had all the opulence to the extent he could enjoy it of a great king. He was the senior member of the Kurus. He had world power for a while, which he really clung on to, as his name indicates. Dhritarashtra means one who held on to the kingdom. So he had all this, but it wasn't a good life in many ways. He was what we would call nowadays I guess you'd say a super facilitator. He was completely a facilitator of this demonic Duryodhana, his son, and his other sons were kind of bad actors. And so he was just constantly looking the other way, facilitating them. And so now Vidura has seen him transcend all this, go back to his soul, and successfully complete this very demanding yoga practice, spiritual practice. So that's the harsha. that his brother, his older brother, and his sister-in-law have really transcended. They have done the right thing. They've given up all this nasty material world. And of course, Shoka, lamentation, is because you can't just be completely free from human feelings. As a devotee, we understand them and we transcend them, but they are there. So it's harsha shoka yutas. He's feeling harsha and shoka, delight and lamentation. And then tasmat ganta. Again, Narada is still speaking in the future. So ganta, I won't go into all the Sanskrit grammar here, but it means he will go from there. Tasmat means from there, or from that place. Tasmat also in Sanskrit is often used to mean therefore, because like you say one thing and then from that something else, which is therefore. But here it means tasmat, from that means from that place. So tasmat ganta, he will go from there. Tirtha nishevaka, to visit and take advantage of the pilgrimage places. Nishevaka means a pilgrim, one who is going on pilgrimage, and tirtha, to holy places. And this is all going to happen in 5 days. So Narada is describing in detail what these people are going to do. The Vidura to Tadascharya, the Vidura seeing this wonder, Okuranandana, and filled with or feeling delight and lamentation. From there, from that place, Kantan, 5 days, he will go as a pilgrim to holy places. So Narada has really explained exactly what's going to happen. And of course, it did happen. Ityutva, having thus spoken, Aruhat Swargam, he rose to heaven. Aruhat means he rose, he went up. So having said that, he went up to heaven. That's nice. Prabhupada says for Aruhat, ascended. One second here. Having said that, he ascended to heaven. Swargam, Prabhupada says, into outer space. Well, that's where heaven is, in outer space. So he ascended to heaven or to outer space. Narada saha tumburu. Narada saha with tumburu, his instrument. Tumburu, although some people, there's some interpretation that tumburu is the name of a sage. So he was with another sage, but Prabhupada takes it in the sort of the standard way. It's his instrument, his tumburu. And Yudhishthiro vachastasya hridi kritva. And Yudhishthir kritva, placing vachastasya, his words, placing Narada's words, hridi, in his heart, placing Narada's words in his heart, ajahat shucha, he gave up his grief. So this, of course, is a great instruction for all of us, because all of us have to deal with grief in this world. It's the nature of this world. We know. And so we have to remember these instructions of Narada, of Prabhupada, the instructions of great teachers. And we have to place those instructions in our heart, because the grief is in the heart. And so it's like if you have some disease on your body, you have to place the medicine on the disease, not somewhere else. It won't help you if you have some disease and you put the medicine somewhere else in your body, it won't help. So the disease is in the heart, and we have to place the medicine, and the medicine is the teachings of great souls like Narada Muni, like Prabhupada. So we put that medicine right on the problem, which is in the heart. And then it said he gave up his lamentation. And that's the end of chapter 13. We have finished a chapter. And hopefully we will all be on the planet next Sunday, and willing and able. And next chapter 14 is the disappearance of Lord Krishna, the disappearance of Lord Krishna. So let's see if there are Any questions? Going back here to, what do they call it again? StreamYard. So it kind of dances, because as new comments come in, it kind of dances around. That's why sometimes a challenge to find the questions, the dancing comment section. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for your statements. I get a lot of kind greetings here. Let's see. Thank you, KR, for listening. Let's see. So far, no questions. Oh, Jagat Palana. He's always a reliable question asker. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the soul is achala. Does it mean that what we perceive as movement is illusion? No, things are really moving. Achala means that we do not move from our position as eternal souls, that we don't transform into anything else, we don't change. The word is achala, which means not chala. And verb chala means to be moved, to be agitated. It can mean that, like, agitated. To tremble. It can mean to go away. So we don't go away from our position. It can mean not being moved from one's path. So achala means not moved from our path. There's a certain path for the soul. It can mean not to be disturbed, confused, disordered, not to go astray, not to deviate. For example, there's a word, it's not very flattering, pungschali. It means, that's how you say sort of like a promiscuous woman. And pung means that she's easily moved by men, like men move her. Like, in the presence of a man, a woman who just kind of melts or loses her self-control, loses her intelligence, her discrimination. So she's moved by men, deviated by men. So that's the word pungschali, which is found here and there in the Bhagavatam. So it's in that sense that I've just, all these senses that I just described, that the soul is achala. So thank God there's a Sanskrit dictionary. It's really interesting and helpful. So from Ratakanta, translating from Spanish, to desire to serve with love and sincerity, the question, does it eradicate completely the pathology of seeking to consume, seeking to enjoy things for one's personal benefit? Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So Parang Shreya made an interesting comment. Burning in his own hut. It reminds me of the Vikings chiefs at their funerals, burning in their own ships. Yeah, that is kind of, actually a meditation hut is a type of vehicle, definitely. So from Chandrasekhar, can you explain the notion of returning to the spiritual in one's self-same body? How is that possible? What about one's siddha sarupa? You'll have to cite a particular verse there. It's not the case in today's reading because Dhritarashtra's body burned up. So if you're interested in that, later you can cite the verse and we can go over that. So Bhajan, Simon, thank you very much. How can yoga siddhis of Narada and others be scientifically explained? Well, they cannot be scientifically explained by people who don't have the intelligence to understand them. So it's just like, for example, there's all kinds of advanced science, but 99% of the people in this world are not able to read a very advanced, say, book on physics. because it has all kinds of statements and symbols and logic, which just, unless you're trained, you can't do it. So a science can be explained to someone who's a scientist. You can give a popular, simple version of science, but to actually understand a science, one has to be a scientist. And one can deny, as actually some people do, like the flat earthers. People think the earth is flat, or people think the world was created 5,000 years ago because the Bible told me so. So in order to understand the science, you have to be a scientist. And so among the advanced yogis, spiritual scientists, they seem to have absolutely no problem communicating with each other. And as far as, how you actually do it, that's for another day, we'll talk about that. So Harinam Charan. My question is, can we accept Vedic demigods as same as angels in Islamic literatures? They call them Lak or Malak, who is always an obedient servant of Allah. But in our tradition, Devas sometimes are not obedient. If we use the word Malak for the position of Devas, although it seems like contradictory in quality of these, I think we could compare the Malaks or the angels more to Narada Muni, to great souls who sort of fly in and help people solve their problems. So the Devas are administrators. They're not, whereas angels in the sense of, I'll tell you what the dictionary says about angel, so we can. Spiritual being believed to act as an attendant, agent, or messenger of God, conventionally represented in human form with wings and a long robe. It can mean an attendant spirit, especially a benevolent one. So someone serving God and acting to help people down here in this world, that would be the great sages, the great, like Narada, rather than the demigods who are more administrators. They have to keep law and order. Let's see, it just danced. My screen just danced. StreamYard for you. Radhakanta, another question, is it really necessary to visit sacred places or to study with the heart? I'm translating this. The words of scriptures, or by studying the words of scriptures, can one consider oneself to have made a pilgrimage? My personal experience is that going to holy places can be a very powerful boost to one's spiritual life. And if for some reason, whether it's financial or health or, because of your career, it's just very difficult for you to go to holy places, especially if they're literally on the other side of the planet, as in my case, then one can get the benefit in scriptures. So all these things are offered, these spiritual facilities, and people find the right combination, the right formula that works for them in their spiritual life. So, Priyahita. It took 5 days for Dhritarashtra to prepare to leave his body. How was Gandhari able to just walk in and transcend? No, let me correct that. First of all, it didn't just take them 5 days. They've been gone for a while. Narada Muni didn't say that it's going to take them 5 days. Narada Muni said 5 days from now they're going to do this. That doesn't mean they just started their spiritual practice now and in 5 days. It means that's what they're doing right now, and in 5 days they're going to leave. How is Gandhari able to just walk in and transcend? Because Gandhari was also practicing. Narada is talking about Dhritarashtra, but Gandhari wasn't just, on Netflix or something, or, sort of, talking to her friends on Facebook or whatever. Gandhari, if anything, was a more powerful spiritual practitioner than Dhritarashtra. And so she was at it. She was ready. Just above, there was a question from Julietta. Okay, Julieta, who was actually Janava, Devi Dasi. Oh, yeah, please put in lots of question marks. Hay que poner los puntos de interrogación porque si no es difícil ver. Entonces, siempre pedimos que los que hagan preguntas que pongan los puntos de interrogación, muchos de ellos, para poder ver. So, Julieta, so translating from Spanish, the chastity of Gandhari, the question, is considered material or spiritual? That's a very interesting question. Well, I'll give, I'll say yes or no in this sense. If we just look at Gandhari, she was chaste to Dhritarashtra, who was not the most spiritual person on earth before he renounced. And so being very chaste to a materialistic person is not spiritual. I mean, it's nice. Chastity is nice. Although it's interesting, the Bhagavatam does not mention that she blindfolded herself. That's another issue for another day. Bhagavatam does not say that she did that. But anyway, so she was very chaste, but she was very chaste to a person who was doing bad things. And that's not spiritual, although it is pious and mode of goodness. It is spiritual in the sense that Gandhari, like all these people, are taking part in a theater in Krishna Lila. So this is Krishna Lila, and because she's playing her part very nicely, in that sense, the sense of playing your part in Krishna Lila, then it was spiritual, but not by itself. So thanks to Gary Stevenson to pointing out that there was a question above. So Tarun asked, immovable, I suppose he means like Jagannath. Not, I mean, I guess Dhritarashtra was like Jagannath, but that's different. I mean, it's outwardly, they're both not moving, but of course for different reasons. So I think that, Krishna Priya. I suppose Gandhari, was she chaste to the dharma of her time? Yes and no. It was the dharma of her time to be a faithful wife, but the yuga dharma was to worship Krishna. So did she worship Krishna? Yes, in the sense that she's playing her part in Krishna Lila. No, in the sense that the part she played was not to do what Krishna wanted. I mean, you have to go back and look at the Mahabharata. You could say, well, Krishna wanted her to be a chaste wife, which is true. And she did sometimes chastise Dhritarashtra. She did sometimes tell him, like, what the hell are you doing? And so to the extent that she herself was just tolerating what her husband was doing, it's like, for example, a devotee wife. Let's say a devotee wife whose husband is either not a devotee or not a very good devotee, and yet the wife, to please Krishna, remains a chaste wife, assuming the husband is not abusive, in which case you should not remain a faithful wife to an abusive man. But let's say, I mean, Dhritarashtra was not abusive. He was just up to his eyeballs in dirty politics. So in that sense, the extent to which she loved Krishna, and there's stories in the Mahabharata that she cursed Krishna and all this. I am not going to place those in my version of the Mahabharata. But so as far as who Gandhari really was, and the extent to which she was being chaste to her husband because she knew that's what, Krishna wanted her to be, a chaste wife, in that sense, you could say it was the dharma of her time. And it was also the dharma of her time in the sense that chastity was considered very important for respectable people. So I guess that's it. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. And hopefully we can meet again next Sunday. Hare Krishna.